Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the SavageBee Pusher by Newbie Drone. There's also kind of a version of this just called the SavageBee, which I believe runs a 2.5-inch prop and it's running them upright, obviously with pusher in the name. We've got props and motors inverted here on the quad, and this is not quite what I kind of thought it was supposed to be when I saw it first. Got a little bit of get up and go. The flight controller, which the USB is right up here, it is not USB-C, it's the micro USB. This is the same one that they used on the other SavageBee, which is the B-Brain HD G4. It is at an MPU 6000 on there, so some people will be very pleased to hear that. And it has a 20 amp ESC. The motors are Newbie Drone Flow 1202, as you can see there, version 1. And the KV is right over here at 11,420 KV. And on those motors are GemFan 3018 bi-bladed props. Inside this little print is the Newbie Drone M10Q micro GPS. The M10Q is kind of what we're seeing mostly nowadays when it comes to GPS and being those on drones. Of course, we have our camera, which does use the 2 camera screws and does allow us for various camera angles. You can see here I ended with that camera angle. That's the faster flight that we'll see in this video, as well as the VTX down here. Our USB port is very accessible, and this print is very interesting to me because at first glance I thought it might be a mold or resin print, but I think it's a traditional 3D print, but it's just the materials I'm not familiar with. But I don't print much, don't put much weight into what I'm saying about printing. It also has an Express LRS receiver with diversity antennas, and these 3D prints here on the motor ends or the arm ends do mount those antennas, just as they do for the 03 VTX antennas out back here. So pretty clean, and they also used my favorite motor wire tape to keep things down on the carbon fiber. Got a Newbie Drone battery strap here with a buckle. This is a 2S quad. That's why the battery strap is so small, probably bigger than we needed for 2S. But we also have a non-texturized battery mat right here up top. Camera MIPI cable is secured with a loop as well as a zip tie. The 03 is mounted within the print with screws that go through, I believe, and make contact with the print. They are recessed, but they go through the VTX. So it's actually pretty stiff in there. Top carbon fiber plate looks to be 2mm thick, and the bottom plate is 3mm thick. And it looks to be somewhere around 121mm motor post to motor post. On my scale, it weighs 105.1 grams. I flew it primarily with these 3 batteries. With the 550 milliamp Tattoo battery, it weighs 136.43 grams. With the G&B 552S, it weighs 133.75 grams. And with the Tattoo 852S, it weighs 144.84 grams. As you would expect, it comes with a second set of props, or a spare set. It comes with a sheet to kind of lay out the quad and where everything is for you, as well as some of the specs. And I ended up with 2 extra screws. So note the satellites up there is currently at 7. This is about a minute in from first plug-in. You can see there my runtime on the DVR is 30 seconds, and once we get to 8 satellites, then that activates GPS rescue. I don't tweak GPS stuff, and I really don't use it hardly at all. So those that may have questions about the GPS, I'm really not a good resource for that, unfortunately. I would suspect that you can change the number of satellites before rescue would be enabled. By rescue, that would be, you get into a situation where you've lost video signal, or I don't know. There's scenarios I probably can't think of because I don't really have a use for it because I fly here in the backyard. But you might be able to tweak that within Betaflight to where it comes at 6 or 7 and then GPS rescue works, because again, I'm not very well versed in that sort of stuff. But as far as flying this quad, I used that flight because that takeoff, and I kind of missed narrating that takeoff, but I clipped the table because I kind of take off like a racer. I kind of nose up, or nose down, excuse me, that's the opposite. And then I just want to shoot off the table, and I clipped the props. And that's really the only reminder that I got that this was a pusher or inverted sort of quad design. But otherwise, I think with landing too, you have to keep that in mind. That's one of the things that I can tell you about my experience in having it inverted and open prop, is that you take off like a traditional racer. You might be clipping the ground and beating up the poor props. When you land, you probably need to try to come in again very, very flat when you land, and then disarm right above the ground rather than come sliding in, because the props are going to take damage. And if you come in too violently that way, you could end up damaging the motors in some way. But that's why I picked this flight. Plus, it's a nice day. It's not necessarily a great day, as I hit that branch and then try to turn it into something fancy. But it's winds are high, because I like to report that stuff. 16 to 20 mile an hour winds, and you might be able to hear it. And with it being this time of year, we don't have very many leaves, so the winds are kind of breaking through. 45 degrees on this particular day, but sunny. I can appreciate sunny. And you can see I didn't really find a happy spot with the low voltage warning, but two things about the quad. I didn't expect it to have this much giddy up and go, and I was pretty pleased about that, because I really thought it would be a cruiser, kind of an exploratory sort of quad, but I had good fun with it. Unfortunately, the flight time's a little bit short with the 550 that I'm using in this video. I should have used the 850.
Boom, shakala.
And looking back through my footage, I either crashed out when I used the 850s, or I never got a full flight on the 850s when I flew it faster. But let's move into cruising. So it's obviously a different day. The winds are 18 to 28 miles per hour, and I picked this particular day. Well, one, I go out and when it's not raining or it's not horrible, uncomfortable, I'll take pretty much most things that are open prop outside to try them out in wind. Because that will help, I think, in those people that are trying to decide, especially when it comes to micros. I don't think bigger quads are as sensitive, but micros can be sensitive to the winds. So we have some pretty high winds. You can probably hear them, and you can see all those leaves on the yard that weren't previously on the yard. Yeah, the service that we hired did finally come and pick up all the leaves. They were trying to be sensitive about the lawn, because we had been getting rain as well, and they didn't want their equipment to be tearing up the lawn or anything like that. And I respect that, but boy, I was getting tired of looking at all these leaves. It was kind of pushing me to just get out there, but I'm at an age where, especially with the physicality of my knees and my back, that if I go out there, I'm kind of trash for a week. And I also got the gutters cleaned up. I did that part on my own. You know, I can still climb a ladder and get up there and clean off the gutters. But anywho, very, very smooth, in my opinion, for the winds that we are experiencing. So if you like cruisers, or you like to do exploratory sort of flight, this one does have GPS, which, again, I'm not one that uses GPS much, but I have heard from comments, and that's why comments are so valuable, because they expand my understanding, that people that do like to just go out and explore, even without doing technically long range, GPS provides them a little bit of reassurance that if they do lose video, or their fingers slip off the sticks, or something happens to where they need to locate the quad, they can have GPS rescue on there. You can also add through the Betaflight OSD the latitude and longitude information. So if you go down, you can use that information and your cell phone to go track where the quad is. Of course, with long range, GPS I think is fairly highly recommended. But yeah, this is the Goggles 2 recording. I have been labeling the recordings down there at the bottom. So this is our DVR information. And you can see that our cruising throttle position up there in the upper right, or excuse me, upper left, we're in the middle upper 20s, depending upon whether I'm turning or not. You can also see the voltage in the bottom left. We've got our average per cell voltage on the top, and our total voltage on the bottom. And then we've got our amp pull, and we've got our fly time and our air time. Now, they do have on their own website flight times to report, which I would say are fairly accurate. That is going to vary depending upon the care and quality of your batteries, how many cycles those batteries have on them. That always varies quite a bit. You know, if you have batteries that you've had hundreds of flights on, they're not going to operate or give you the flight times that they would the first, 50 or 100, whatever they are. So you can look at that, and I will have a link that is an affiliate link down in the video description. I do think you probably, in the short run, would only be able to look at this one and potentially purchase if you're interested from Newbie Drone. Like most places right now, there are holiday shopping season codes. I have got a code for Beta FPV. I don't think Newbie Drone has published one yet, but Beta FPV code, I think it's NIC24BF or NICBF24. I'll put it down in the video description. If you're interested in picking up something directly from Beta FPV, that does give you 20% off. But if Newbie Drone does come out with a code for savings off of their site, I will certainly include that in the video description as well. I have talked myself all the way through. You see there, we got 3 minutes and 45 seconds on a 550, and they show a flight time of 3 minutes, but that's cruising versus going faster. The first thing that'll catch a lot of people out, and this isn't specific to this quad, it's just about inverted props and motors, is that the high side of the prop should always go or lead in the direction of the motor. So obviously, this is a props in configuration, because hopefully you can tell This side closest to us is the high side, and then we've got the low side. So this motor would rotate in. That is, to my knowledge, almost universally the case. And I've got a single prop out here to hopefully illustrate the high side of the prop. If you look at the hub, the high side is connected on the high side, and the prop will kind of lead in that direction. That's how they're designed to create thrust, and then you get the low side. So this particular prop would always spin in this direction. And we would never mount the prop upside down because it just, while you might be able to get off the ground, you're going to use a lot of throttle, and it's not going to fly very well that way. It just won't have much authority because the prop isn't designed to be flown this way. Yes, it works for turtle mode, but it's not designed to be flown that way. You want to have it with the high side up here. So just a touch about props, because I don't think I've ever touched on that before. So I've kind of touched on most of the points about this, and I kind of highlighted with the motors and props down at the bottom that if you take off like I do, you know, I kind of angle forward and take off. You really don't want to do that. You want to pop up and then take off. You know, get some clearance there. These are 3-inch props, so they do stick, as you can see out here. You know, that's touching right there, so you don't have to create much angle before the prop will actually strike the ground. So again, when you come in and you're flying, you want to come in, hover, and then get, you know, a couple inches off the ground and then just disarm. You don't want to come sliding in, because you're gonna damage the props up, and you'll be changing out of props a lot. A couple things that I really I thought were interesting, whether they're good things or not, that's always subject to opinion, so you'll have your own on this. They included the zip tie, but they did not attach it. So I attached the zip tie here to the frame. It came in the bag. Everything was already mounted up. Of course, this came with the O3 already inside of it. You can fly as we can with all of these, without having 2 screws. I went ahead and used and left the 2 screws in there because it does allow for some extra camera angle. You can actually, hopefully you can tell in there, you can actually go further. Let me zoom in and see if I can get the camera to focus. You can actually get more camera angle than I've got. Hopefully you can see that around that screw. So that's a good thing. And also these prints on the arms, I thought that was relatively ingenious. It maybe has been done before and I just haven't seen it, but it's not like they're, you know, you could take these out if you want to, because these little pieces, they're just like little claws that just kind of clip in, you know, like you see in various sorts of plastics where things snap together. I thought that was pretty good design. Here on the rear end with the O3 antennas, you do have to kind of push those through. Those are not open to where you can pop them down through, so you push those through. And then, of course, they've got a capacitor down here, excuse me, to clean up our video, help every little bit of resilience as far as getting a clean power into the flight controller, so the flight controller spinning at time, giving us good smooth flight. You may have noticed a little bit of prop wash on a few of those power loops or dives. I think it was mainly on the power loop that I kind of do around the tree. That doesn't always happen. There's a kind of a fine line in technique there, and I've highlighted that in other videos as well, that sometimes when I am flying, I'm coming in a little too flat. So you do your loop and you come around, and you don't start bringing the throttle up until you get, you know, say you start getting here, and then you start to get a little bit of that quick shutter. And sometimes that can be tuned out 100%, sometimes not. But I was surprised at how firm this mount for the O3 is. That feels like, I thought the screws went all the way through, and in looking at this, I don't think that the screw does, because I can't see, I don't know if I can show this on camera, but I can't see the screws going all the way through there. See the little blue gap right in there if I get the angle right. The screw is about here. So I think it's just a matter of this print and having the O3 securely mounted to the print that is keeping everything so firm in there. So that gives me a little bit more confidence in those scenarios where you do come in crashing, that damaging your O3 and possibly destroying your MIPI cable by tearing this all apart. It's going to be a pretty severe crash, as well as using 3mm carbon on the bottom plate and 2mm on the top. That's, as I oftentimes say, that's pretty robust. And I didn't expect that, because when I saw the designs on this, I thought it would be more of a cruiser flat flyer, because it was relatively beefy and it would probably be pretty durable. You know, we have even these front arm braces on here. But it actually had a pretty good pickup and go, and it didn't fly necessarily heavy. That's probably a proponent of the KV of motors and the props that they chose. It was pretty responsive. Of course, you can make your own diagnosis about that in the videos that I've showed so far on this particular one. I was a little bit surprised, and maybe this is just a company thing. that they don't have a naked version, because when we drop weight on micros, they always kind of perk up just a touch, and sometimes that takes your enjoyment level, if you like to fly the way I like to fly. There are lots of you that don't want to fly like I fly, and I appreciate that. It's just we all have our own sorts of desires, and I try to show different sorts of flights because I know that I don't fly like everyone else flies or wants to fly. So I try to cover those things, but it seems like if we were to drop the weight, it would perk it up even a little bit more and really bring a little bit more excitement. But we can do that on our own. I'm sure they have a version of this that you buy without the O3, and then you have a naked O3 that you either bought or you made naked yourself, and then you add your own in. But I was pretty happy. I do think that most of my time I would probably use a 650 2S battery, which I actually don't know that I have any 650s. I think mine are all 550, 850, and then above. To get about 20 to 30 seconds more of that more energetic sort of flight, because that's kind of where I want to be, about 2.5 minutes on those flights. And then I kind of need a break. But, if you want that same sort of flight and you want even more, you could do it 850, because I didn't think this was weighing the quad down when I was flying faster, but apparently I did crash out during all of my flights with the 850. And hopefully I have those crashes somewhere, and I can have included those in the video. So I was just looking to see if I could find the price. They only sent me the information for the price with the O3 at $399. Of course, that comes with an Express LRS receiver. Hopefully they have a version that you can buy without the O3 if you want to go that naked route. I haven't seen any negative impact or people reporting that the DJI O3 is fragile when it's naked or some of the metal is taken off the casing in the camera. Obviously, it would expose it to some degree, so that's a risk we have to be willing to take. But I would like to see that version available for those that want to fly more aggressively for a little bit longer and kind of increase its responsiveness a lot. But I was surprised that it wasn't just a flatline sort of exploratory cruiser sort of quad. I thought it handled my flights outside better than I had expected prior to actually having it in hand and flying. And I'm just surprised because we've got thick carbon. We've got a lot of metal standoffs. They're short, but a lot of metal standoffs in here. And it's not necessarily a super lightweight quad, but it is running a 3-inch prop on 1202 motors. So that may be really compensating quite a bit for kind of what I headed into this review thinking. But $399 on this. There will be an affiliate link down in the video description if you do want to check it out. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, remember, I haven't flown the SavageBee. I can't really give you any information about the differences between these two. I've only flown the SavageBee Pusher. Please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching. And my wife absolutely does not like this hat. Is there something wrong with this hat? Is it the holy catfish? Because I say that around the house. What's the problem?